Hello, everyone, and welcome to my latest review of Marvel's What If on Disney Plus, the wonderful world of Disney Plus. Hope you're all doing well today. I imagine, if I don't get too vociferous, which is, of course, one of my failings, this will be a relatively brief review because not much happens. So I'll just get right into it. The premise, I had no idea of this episode's premise prior to it being published today. I haven't looked ahead at the titles of the different episodes, if they're even known. I've seen glimpses of a beardless Thor in some of the promotional material, but I didn't know any context to it. The premise I thought was really interesting because of all the episodes thus far, it's the one where a single decision is made that could conceivably offset a whole bunch of different events. And the premise is, what if Thor was an only child? So the one decision made was that instead of keeping the baby Loki to raise as his own, Odin returns him to the Frost Giants. And I thought, without having seen the episode, I just saw the title. I was like, okay, that's an interesting idea. What would happen, if Loki wasn't there to instigate this or to instigate that and so on? What would be the outcome or a potential outcome? Okay, I'm kind of on board with this at the start. So we begin with, I have to assume this is taking place during the events of Thor, the film Thor. So if everything on Earth conceivably has proceeded normally to this point, the films Captain America, Iron Man, and The Incredible Hulk have effectively taken place or been taking place. Also, retroactively, Captain Marvel. So let's keep that in mind. So we are out in the desert in the van with Jane Foster and Darcy. I didn't see the credits as clearly. I didn't pay attention to the credits at the beginning as clearly as I could have. So I don't know if Natalie Portman came back to voice Jane, but maybe she did. But definitely Kat Dennings is there to voice Darcy, because who could get past that voice? Anyway, so, and in the absence of Professor Selvig, because I'm assuming they couldn't get, Skarsgård's participation in this. So anyway, they're out in the desert in their van. Jane is monitoring, intergalactic phenomena, as we saw in the first Thor movie. For some reason, without her professor there, they name drop him later, but it never comes up. Anyway, so they're out there, and they're just sitting around waiting, and oh my gosh! And suddenly there's an anomaly, and something's happening, and oh my gosh! And then there's this beam of light coming across the sky, but it's not landing in front of them like it did in the movie, where she pinpointed where the occurrence of the Rainbow Bridge would occur in the desert. No, it jumps off to, oh my gosh, Las Vegas, and there's a big light. Look, there's an Elvis impersonator, Las Vegas, and oh my gosh, there's these people. It's all so dramatic, and then it's Thor, and he's like, I'm here to party. And I'm like, what? So then they go through the backstory of how, here's how things proceeded normally. And then, of course, Odin decided to return the baby. And so that's what set off everything different. They weren't brothers. He wasn't raised with another brother to contrast or conflict with, etc. So Odin's going to sleep in the Odin sleep, as he was going to do in the original movie, except that I guess Thor is going to be king now because there wasn't anything standing in his way. He's acting just as arrogant, if not more so. And this is where I got my first hints that things in this episode were going to go kind of goofy, very goofy, because they're like, Odin's going to sleep. Frigga pokes him to make sure he's asleep. And then she's like, I'm off to my mother's for the solstice. And then Thor's like, I'm going to throw a big party. I'll behave. And Heimdall's going to keep an eye on things. Idris Elba did not come back to voice Heimdall. And so Thor's like, hey guys, we're going to go have a party. We're going to have a big party on a planet that Heimdall, some backwater planet that Heimdall won't even pay attention to. You know, Midgard. What? Heimdall's not going to notice we're gone, first and foremost. And secondly, he won't see where we are because we're on a backwater planet called Earth, which just happens to be one of the 9 realms, that Heimdall keeps an eye on, at least explicitly. So anyway, they decide, or Thor decides, they're going to land in Las Vegas. Now, interesting thing, how does Thor know that Las Vegas is a place to go for parties? I don't know. How do all the weird Jersey Shore colloquialisms used in this episode, how are they known to Thor? I don't know, because Thor's never been to Midgard, or if he has, he apparently doesn't know what technology is. He doesn't know what like an iPad is because he expresses confusion over technology later and things, but yet he and everybody who comes to this planet with them knows Earth lingo. I mean, at several points, Loki says, "You're my brother from another mother." Just as future reference, if you can imagine the Marvel Universe being mixed with Looney Tunes, this is what happens. So anyway, there's a big party, and you see every alien from every movie. Jane Foster meets Thor. He goes through his, maybe he's born with it, maybe it's Maybelline moment. She falls in love with him instantly. And there are Skrulls. And there's every alien from every Marvel movie. You've got the Zendarians. You've got the Game Master. Jeff Goldblum makes a cameo in this. You've got nearly all the Guardians of the Galaxy, save for Peter Quill and Gamora, show up in this. And the Frost Giants. And there's Jeff Goldblum. There's all the Sicarians, or whatever the name of that planet was the Sakaar. And so anyway, she's like, "Hey, did you blow up a planet off in the galaxy somewhere?" "Oh yeah, we had a party at this other planet a while back." And she's like, "Oh, you destroyed the planet." "Oh, it was more like a meteor or a big ball of rock and stuff." And there's supposed to be a plot here where Jane is investigating the destruction of a planet, wondering if Thor didn't do it. That plot line, whatever value it had, has nothing to do with the rest of the show. Anyway, Howard the Duck is there, by the way. And Howard the Duck, well, you'll see in a second here if we get to the montage. So the Game Master is being DJ. And there's a Nebula. And there's, what's his name? I don't know, Taika Waititi's character from Ragnarok, because all these characters and everybody who have absolutely no reason to congregate with one another, they're just all there for reasons. Okay. And here's the thing. You could say, "Hey, Scribe, it's a cartoon, right? It's a cartoon. It's not supposed to be taken seriously, etc." And I get that. And I've said that before regarding this series. The problem is that they take the notion of a what. I mean, this would be a what the. If you guys know anything about Marvel Comics, they had a little joke series called What the, and that was where all the slapstick, weird, absolutely goofy Saturday morning cartoon, Looney Tune type stuff they would do, just joke comics like Spider Baby, stuff like that. It'd be called What the. This is a what the until the very last scene. And then suddenly they want us to take it seriously. But they also don't want us to think about, I don't know, the continuity of events. Anyway, so there's a big party. They're all partying. Thor and Jane get tattoos. She gets magic and science because the first night they met, what you do is you get a tattoo. I guess it's Vegas. Then we get a montage of all types of stuff. Oh, by the way, I don't know if I can find there's the freeze frame. Perfect. Howard the Duck and what's her name? I just suddenly forget her name because she's not important. Get married. They have a Vegas wedding. Yeah. So anyway, they're married now in Vegas. And then we wake up at the trash hotel room, Jamie Alexander came back for about 3 seconds to say like 4 lines as Lady Sif. I don't believe Ray Stevenson came back. But anyway, so yeah, they're all drunk, hangover. Imagine like if you mix the Hangover with Thor with the well, any teen movie from the 80s where a party was held and they had to clean it all up before the parents came home, like Weird Science, that kind of stuff. That's all in here. Anyway, so they have a party, etc. There's Rocket Raccoon for no reason. There's Rocket Raccoon's there for no reason. Shield shows up and are like, you have to come with us. Like, why her? Why now? Anyway, and all the aliens are in that room. Like Thor is in there. Okay, which you think would make some sense. And then she's like, do you know why I'm the acting director of S.H.I.E.L.D. coming to your door? And then we get our, where is it? Oh, I can't find there we go. We get our Samuel L. Jackson cameo because apparently super secret S.H.I.E.L.D. shows up in Vegas with Asgardian warriors blocking the casino. And he's like, oh, you need to talk to me, alien person. And then he gets bowled over by what's his name? And now he's unconscious. Nick Fury is. So anyway, they take Jane Foster to the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier, which is floating in the open over Las Vegas because that's what it does. And they talk on there, and apparently they're considering this an alien invasion. So Thor and all of the creatures of all of the worlds and all of the galaxy showing up on Earth to party is an alien invasion. And it's happening all over the world. And it needs to stop. And we get a brief cameo by Clark Gregg as Coulson. So anyway, they're all like, ha, 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 ha. So how do you know the Thor guy? Well, I just kind of know him and I'm not in love with him. And Frank Grillo shows up for just cuz. And their only solution because of the alien invasion, because of Thor, the Skrulls, the Sicarians, the Zendarians, the rock guy, Rocket Raccoon, Drax the Destroyer, all these characters showing up, their only solution is to call Captain Marvel. To do what, you may ask? I don't know. I didn't know when I was watching this. I'm like, what's Captain Marvel going to do about this? Anyway, so they call Captain Marvel, and we get more like Thor's hanging out with the Zendarians, and you got all these, and then Loki shows up. Now, this is the only image in this whole thing that I thought was kind of cool. Like, what if Loki was actually Prince of the Frost Giants? What would his look be if he never had to emulate, human-like form and such? And of all the things, this is the only one I was like, that's a cool image. It doesn't save the show, but I thought, okay, that's an interesting way to look at it. So Loki shows up like he's going to be a threat, but it's a complete fake out because these guys are best bros. And they use bros a lot in this episode. So Loki is a proper frost giant, but they're actually friends. They're doing a whole Lando Calrissian Han Solo kind of thing there for a second. Anyway, they're there to party. We're going to party. And then this, and you see this several times in the next several minutes. Remember when I said this is about Looney Tunes? Okay, the names of the countries where they are jetting to are written on the land. It took me a second because I was like, what? I mean, I guess that is necessary because if you first set everything in Las Vegas and then you try to distinguish where you are on the basis of world landmarks, given how many fake versions of world landmarks are in Las Vegas, I guess the only way to tell your audience that you're somewhere other than Las Vegas is to put the country name on the country that you are traveling to. So of all the points in this, I was like, okay, this is ridiculous. So anyway, just so you know, They're actually in France. The Eiffel Tower in the background wasn't the Las Vegas fake one. It was the real one, because that matters. Anyway, so Shooting Star comes down to France, and who is it? It's Captain Marvel. And Captain Marvel's like, okay, you need to get off this planet. And he's like, we're just partying and having fun. What's wrong with that? And she's like, well, I don't like the fact that you're here and you're not listening to me. Get off my planet. And he's like, well, I want to stick around and party. So she punches him. If you can believe it, Captain Marvel, in a otherwise peaceful but annoying situation, decides to punch somebody to solve a problem. So this begins a long, drawn-out fight between Captain Marvel and Thor. And we jet over to Stonehenge, where Thor just like tips over Stonehenge because why not? And then they fight and they fight and they fight in the desert, and they fight 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 and they keep fighting, and they're fighting more, and they fight, and then they end up back in France. And here's the interesting thing. He puts the hammer on her. Now, I might be misremembering the physics of the events in the movies, but I was under the impression that the whole hammer cannot be lifted by anybody but Thor didn't happen until after Odin put effectively the curse on the hammer, that, only if they so be worthy, may they have the powers of Thor, and consequently lift the hammer. So if that never happened, because Thor wasn't kicked out of Asgard, because he didn't go fight the frost giants, etc., 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 goaded on by Loki, of course, would the whole hammer not being able to be lifted by anybody else be a thing? I'm not quite clear on that, but either way, he puts the hammer on Captain Marvel to keep her pinned for a second, and he's like, cool down. We're just gonna have fun. And she goes back to S.H.I.E.L.D. all grumpy, and I mean, they captured Brie Larson very well in a lot of this. Oh, and at one point in their fight, Thor tries to tell her to cheer up and smile once in a while. Oh, well, you know what happens then. So anyway, so Captain Marvel's like, I can't beat him. What am I going to do? And I don't even remember what the plot point at this stage is, just to have them talking with each other, I guess. Fails the Bechdel test completely, if you'll remember. Anyway, so Thor calls Jane on a cell phone and says, hey, gorgeous, I want to see you again. And she's like, oh, Thor, I can't wait to see you again, even though I'm standing in S.H.I.E.L.D. and we're plotting your ultimate destruction or something. So anyway, they're talking on the phone. S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't know that she's talking on the phone with Thor, because S.H.I.E.L.D. is not an international espionage super spy agency. So all the girls are talking about Thor and what we're going to do about Thor, and oh my gosh, what we're going to do about Thor. And then they're dropped off back on Earth, and Howard the Duck's like, hey, you're my wife now. And she's like, go away, Howard. And we never see him again. And then she tries calling Thor, but instead she gets Loki. And Loki's like, hey, what's up, babe? And my brother from another mother's sitting over there having breakfast, or sorry, he's having takeout Chinese food. He's like, oh, there's nothing like takeout Chinese food, etc. I'm like, wait, do you or do you not know how Earth operates? Because how could you have this experience if you're acting like you've never been to Earth before in so many other instances? I know I'm nitpicking, but that's what I do. Anyway, so Loki's like, and when Tom Hiddleston's back as Loki, of course, he's like, yeah, I'll totally tell him that you called. And then he breaks the phone accidentally because he's a giant. And yeah. So anyway, then what happens? I'm trying to remember now. There's like nothing happens in this show. Oh, then we get a montage of the different creatures and I guess mythological monsters that shouldn't even be here roaming around the world, tearing up monuments and things, mostly U.S. monuments. The frost giants putting horns and mustaches on Mount Rushmore, and like Surtur melting off the arm of Statue of Liberty because he was hitting on Lady Liberty. He was hitting on a statue and then accidentally melted her arm off. So anyway, all the aliens are like, yeah, and Thor's like, yeah, we're going to party. And then Jane decides that she had a revelation. She's like, wait, if Thor is real and Loki is real, then we should call his mom. How do you call mom? Well, you get your technology together to broadcast a big call to Heimdall. And Heimdall hears Jane Foster and immediately teleports her up to Asgard. In the meantime, the plan was to have Captain Marvel take Thor to a desolated place to kill Thor. I'm not kidding. That was their plan. They're going to kill Thor. And as a backup to that plan, S.H.I.E.L.D. also readied nuclear missiles to fire on Thor if Captain Marvel did not succeed. By killing Thor, you're going to turn around a fun-loving invasion by every alien species on the planet. And remember, this is long before the Battle of New York would have taken place, right? So we're not talking about an evil alien invasion. This is the first Earth widespread alien invasion that's apparently, anyway. So anyway, Jane Foster goes off to Asgard and says, hey, Heimdall, I need to talk to Frigga. And Heimdall's like, because Idris Elba didn't come back to voice anything. And then she's teleported off into the distance. Anyway, so Captain Marvel's coming to fight Thor in North Dakota or South Dakota or something, because they make a bunch of North Dakota and South Dakota jokes. So if you're going to have a giant fight with a alien god, you might as well do it in North or South Dakota because nobody's going to miss them. Haha, funny. Anyway, so they're going to fight, and they're getting ready the nuclear missiles to blow up Thor and half the state with nuclear missiles. Jane Foster finds Frigga at her little wine party with her friends and is like, hey, your son's in trouble on Earth, and he's making trouble and stuff and things and stuff. And so there's a countdown going on where they're getting ready to push the button to send the nuclear missiles to kill Thor, because killing Thor will stop the alien invasion and totally not start a war with Asgard. But yeah, we're going to kill Thor. So Thor and Captain Marvel getting ready to super duper fight. But then Frigga stops in between them right in the middle as the nuclear bombs are about to be thrown off. And she's like, Thor, what are you doing here? You're making trouble. And he's like, oh, mommy, sorry, mom. I'm down here. I'm down here doing a cultural exchange. I'm here to learn about Midgard culture and stuff. And she's like, well, I'm going to come down there and see what's going on soon. I'm just projecting my image down here right now, and I have no knowledge of anything else going on, even though I'm a second only to Odin and god powers and things and stuff. So he's like, no, mom, really, I'm not doing anything kooky. It's fine. And she's like, well, I'll be down there soon to check things out. And Thor's like, oh, now I'm humbled. And now what am I going to do? And so then he goes down, Thor does, to all the people and says, hey, guys, we have to stop this. We have to clean up. And Loki's like, you're kidding, right? You're joking, right? You got to be joking. And everybody's like, oh, we're still partying and stuff and things. And Loki's like, haha, you're kidding, bro. My brother from another mother. And Frigga's heading to Midgard. Now, using the Bifrost, as we've seen in this episode, how long does it take to get from Midgard to Asgard? It is like that. Okay. How long does it take Frigga to get from Asgard to Midgard? The rest of the episode, practically. So then they go through this giant montage where Thor's like, you got to do this thing and stuff. And I'm serious. My mom's coming. She's going to like make everything bad. And he somehow convinces everybody to fix all the damage that's been done. Right? Because that's, anyway, yeah, he calls upon the power of Odin to get everybody's attention. He goes up in the sky, makes a big lightning storm. Everybody's like, oh, I guess he's serious. His mom's really coming. And so they fix Stonehenge. And they fix the St. Louis Arch, and they fix Mount Rushmore, and they restore the power grid that got blown out, and they put the Ferris wheel back. And, oh, by the way, here's more. Just so you remember, we're in a Looney Tune cartoon. All the countries have their names on them from space. So then Thor fixes everything at the last second, and then Frigga shows up, and Thor's giving a lesson. He's teaching schooling stuff to people, and Frigga's like, "What? My son is doing something like productive, and all these aliens are just sitting here listening to him. Oh my gosh!" It's like the end of one of those 80s movies where you got to clean up the house before the parents show up. And then Frigga's like, "I don't believe you. This all seems kind of goofy." And then Captain Marvel shows up and is like, "Ha, hello, Thor. Here's that information you asked for because I'm also in on this joke for some reason, even though 10 minutes ago I was willing to murder you and rain nuclear fire down on a U.S. state to kill you for no reason." Why doesn't Thor have a beard? I don't know. Of all the things, all the mysteries of this episode, that's the one thing they never explain. I'm kidding. Anyway, so then, yeah, everything's fine. Thor's hammer got all like, I don't know, messed with by people somehow. And that gives away the game. And then we're back in the desert, and Jane Foster and Thor are like, haha, let's be boyfriend, girlfriend. You want to go out on a date? Yes, let's go on a date. I love you. I'm already in love with you. Smoochy. Okay, let's go out on a date. Haha, I've got a date with Jane Foster. I'm so happy now. I'm going to go off into the sunset and everything's going to be fine. The Watcher's like, and so we see the end of a story and everyone lives happily ever after. He actually says the words, and everyone lives happily ever after. And he's like, wait, what? And then a portal opens up. And what marches out? A bunch of Ultrons. Say what? But not just any Ultron, a super Ultron that has all of the Infinity Gems. But not just a super Ultron that has all of the Infinity Gems, but it's the Vision inside an Ultron suit with all of the Infinity Gems. And then cut to black. Like, but what? Wait a second. And then, see, of all the things that I could have been talking about this entire episode where nothing happens, this is the one where I'm just like, no, wait. So, unless this is a dimension hopping villain, which it very well may be. Okay, this is the only thing that makes any sense. This thing is popping into this reality from another reality. This cannot be something popping in from this reality or this timeline because there would be no Ultron without the invasion of New York, and there would be no Vision without an Ultron, and a whole bunch of other chain of events would have to take place, and so on and so forth. So I'm guessing, I don't know if this is a one-off throwaway stinger that makes absolutely no sense to the Thor movie or something. I would have thought there'd be some kind of Thor related problem that shows up. But anyway, so you have Ultra Vision, Infinity Vision, Visfinity. I'm going to call it Visfinity. Visfinity shows up, I guess, to take over or something. And then you just cut to black. And it's like, okay, this raises so many questions in my mind. So is this going to be the ultimate bad guy that all of the different heroes we've seen in the various episodes have to face at the end of this series? Maybe. You know, because in the promotional material, you see a sort of interdimensional Avengers thing with the sort of like swooping camera around, and you've got the, Black Panther Star-Lord, and you've got this Thor, and you've got the quasi Doctor Strange. So maybe this is the big bad guy of the series. That's my guess. I don't know. But yeah, that's how you end the show. It's just yeah, and then we get the credits. This was the dumbest episode of all of them so far. And not even dumb on premise, just dumb on execution. Like, the premise was interesting. I was like, okay, what would have happened, like I said, if Loki hadn't been an Asgardian? And what would have happened like afterwards? Like, if there would have been no Battle of New York. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things they could have done with that, but instead they just did nothing. And they had events that made no sense, and they turned it into slapstick Looney Tunes with, And the dialogue is so cringy. Every time somebody said, "Hey, bro," or "My bros and I," "My brother from another mother," it just, ugh. And that's it. There's not much else to say. Uh, yeah, probably the weakest episode of all of them, which is saying something, given some of the previous episodes, because it has nothing in the way of plot, absolutely no connection or relevance to any of the other events in the films. The ending stinger, unless we're given some context later on, unless this becomes like the supervillain that all the guardians of the multiverse are going to be fighting at the end, Visfinity. I don't know. Somebody was really in love with Looney Tunes cartoons. Someone was really in love with 80s movies where you make a mess and you have to clean it up before the parents come home. And somebody just didn't care about really maybe taking partially seriously the premise. So there you go. That's also why all those alien species, the Skrulls, would suddenly show up, and Captain Marvel wouldn't be going like, "What are you guys doing here?" or "You should know better," or "Aren't you a race that is dying out? And why would you be hanging out with the Zendarians, which are probably the people you're warring with?" And uh, yeah. So anyway, there you go. I don't have much else to say. I'll go over to the comments real quick in case anybody has anything they'd like to say. Jonathan Kate, who is the writer? Do they have any comic book credits? I saw the writer was AC. I don't know. I don't know. But it really doesn't matter. If it was a noted comic book author, they must have came up with this concept and cranked this out in a weekend, because there's not much there. I don't know. Texas Attorney General Secret Agent. Okay, I'm here. Let's begin the stream. Yeah, okay. Are you trying to take Lexi Mads' place or something? There's only one Lexi Mads, thankfully. Random American. What happened to Thanos? And would that make two realities that avoided the snap, which makes Doctor Strange just saying there's only one option bullshit? Everything is voided once you get to the Loki TV series, because once the multiverse starts expanding, then everything kind of retroactively becomes irrelevant. That's basically it. Steve 22 sounds like my 7-year-old wrote it. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of thought that went into this. I mean, if somebody came up to me and said, okay, in the movie universe, imagine for a moment, if you will, Odin never adopted Loki. Okay, and based on what we know and what has been established in the movies, what would that change? And I would have just been like, whoa, there's a whole bunch of ways you could go with that. How would the Thor movie have turned out if Loki hadn't been there? Well, gosh, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things, because that's an entire lifetime of growing up without a brother. Who knows what that would have done? I would have probably looked into the psychology of like, what is an only child versus a not only child? If I was writing this, right? I tried to find some hook that I could play off of and just sort of extrapolate. Well, if Thor grew up his entire life as an only child, he'd be even more spoiled. What if Thor effectively became the villain? Right? What if Thor became the villain instead of Loki? What if Loki ultimately had to fight Thor to save Asgard or something like that? Can you imagine what kind of cool stuff you could do? Nope. Thor is going to be the exact same character he was effectively at the beginning of the Thor movie, even without a brother his entire life. Just a party boy, full of himself, reckless, and so on. No change at all psychologically, exactly the same. And we're just going to sort of put him in Las Vegas. Ooh, wow, great. That was worth the time. That was really worth the time. Let's see. Let's see. Shadow Sonata. Thor's hammer was made from the core of a dead star, so it weighs as much as several planets. True, but Captain Marvel is the most powerful figure in the Marvel universe, and she was held down by the hammer. So either she can lift it or she can't. And she couldn't. So again, they didn't really go into it in here in this episode as to whether or not the absence of the inscription on the hammer changed anything about who could lift it or whatever. But that was my thought as I was watching it. And yeah, Random American, A.C. Bradley, 5 writing credits. Yeah, the name seemed vaguely familiar when I saw it come up in the opening credits, but I don't know. Doesn't matter whether they're an expert writer or not. This is not, if they are an expert writer, this is not their best work. And it certainly didn't explore the idea any further than it could have. There's a lot of ways they could have done this. And like I say, I don't expect these things to be high art or high drama or anything. And sure, some of them can be fun or funny. The Guardians of the Galaxy one with Star Panther or Star Lord, it had that humor, but the humor made sense because the movies it's based on had that kind of humor. Sure, there was humor in Thor, but it wasn't France is on the country of France kind of humor. Or, I don't know. Anyway, Game and Time. Captain Marvel has 5 in strength, while Thor has 7 in the power grid. Whose power grid, though? Whose power grid? Are we talking Marvel cards from the 90s? Maybe so. Are we talking the MCU or the MCU, as some say? I don't know. And Jonathan Cate, why are they doing this to the fans? It almost seems like intentionally pissing off the fan base. I mean, here's the thing. None of these things piss me off in the sense of anything because they're all what ifs. They're all, they're side stories. They're, Vertigo kind of stuff. It's like, whatever. But insofar as the series is concerned, insofar as each episode is its own self-contained thing, critiquing them on, okay, how much does this make sense based on the material that they are diverging from, right? Or what has been established in the movies? Are they respecting the source material? It's ridiculous that I have to ask that question in a Marvel Universe thing of the Marvel Studios who started the whole franchise with Iron Man, which had, honestly, probably one of the most respectful of the source materials adaptations you could ask for, all things considered. And that's what made it so great, is that they took the original source material and said, we have to update some things and we have to bring in some elements of the character that were developed over years, but it was a believable piece of comic book, respect, homage. These things, it's just like, if it causes me to ask more questions than just to entertain myself by watching it, then I get a little annoyed. So anyway, everyone, that's about all I have to say. Not much happened in this episode. Didn't propel anything forward, although I guess Visfinity may or may not be the big bad of the series. I guess we'll find out as things go forward. But if you enjoyed this, not the show, but this broadcast, please be sure to leave a like. If you have something you'd like to add, please be sure to leave a comment. Where will I be next? I will be here tomorrow at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for the next installment of TED Excellence, where I'll once again delve into the wonderful world of off-brand TED Talks. And I've got mine picked out for tomorrow. Keep an eye on my Twitter for the notification for that, as well as the poll to pick the bingo card for the night. That'll be tomorrow or late night tonight, depending. Either way, my Twitter is in the description below. And with that, everyone, appreciate you all coming out today and joining me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone here is so well behaved. You have very, very little to do. Everyone who donated, well, nobody did. That's okay. You donated your time. I appreciate that. Either way, now or in the future, appreciate your generosity. I hope everyone is safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.